Warm greetings, everyone. Welcome to another session of Friday Waters Thesis Club. The Friday Waters series is an extension of the flagship program Wednesdays for Water at the W4W Foundation. The idea of Friday Waters is to wet the Fridays with fun-filled and yet fruitful activities for the future generation. Friday Waters series has water talkies, book reading, thesis club, water arts, and meet a maestro, with some of them taking place once a month. The focus of Thesis Club is on bringing students and scholars who have done or are doing research on some aspects of water matters into the session in order to discuss with them their identified problems, aim, objectives, methodology, research design, field work, findings, learning, and the problems or the opportunities they find in doing this subject of inquiry. In the process, we learn about making of the research and also the contribution it aims to make in the science and the society. The session is also meant to increase the outreach of the research and the researcher. My name is Mansee Bal Bhargava, and I'm the moderator today for the Thesis Club session. I'm joined by Professor Sonia Gupta, who is Dean at the Western University School of Architecture Planning, Hyderabad, and she has joined as a discussant for today. For today's session, we welcome Mythili Madhusudhan to share her PhD ongoing research on Chennai Wetland Management, a social-ecological system of Pallikaranai Marsh. I hope I have pronounced the word correctly. So welcome, Mythili, for this time and also agreeing to it. I know I have been holding you for quite some time to do this research. And may I now invite Sonia to introduce the rules of the presentation, and then I'm going to also take it up to introduce Mythili. Or maybe Sonia, you can do Mythili's introduction, then we are in flow. Okay?
I'll be very happy to. Thank you, Mansee. Let me take this opportunity, Mansee, to Mythili, to welcome you. It is Mansee's show, but yes, welcome. And I also welcome the other three attendees to this show. To introduce Mythili Madhusudhan is an architect from School of Architecture and Planning, Anna University, Chennai, and a landscape architect from School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. She completed her master's in 2001 and has been practicing architecture and landscape and is a full-time teacher and researcher since then. In the professional line, she has worked with a number of senior architects and landscape architects in Chennai and has been engaged in residential, commercial, institutional projects offering landscape consultancy. Mythili's initial foray into teaching was soon after her graduation in 2004, teaching landscape construction and ecology to master's students in landscape in Anna University. She has traveled extensively, having spent over a year in Houston, Texas, in the US, where she gained experience volunteering with an art museum and a literary council, as also explored landscaping options. She joined as a faculty teaching 6 days a week in School of Architecture, Meenakshi College of Engineering, 13 years back. She registered for a PhD and in due course as a part-time scholar. In her teaching career, she has engaged students, both undergraduate and postgraduate, in application-oriented subjects like energy-efficient architecture and also landscape and ecology and the like. Professional practice, landscape urbanism, to name a few. She particularly contributed to the design studio and as a thesis supervisor for the BArch program. She shared her knowledge and experience even through outstation trips with her students. She's currently the treasurer of the Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry chapter of Indian Society of Landscape Architects and is engaged in activities with them. She was promoted to professor, congratulations, from associate professor in 2019 and is eagerly giving all to her students and her work environment, looking forward to more. Warm welcome, Mythili.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for already sharing a presentation and us having a little bit of conversation with that. I think it looks very, very good to go forward with your presentation. Please be informed that your presentation should be around 20 to 25 minutes. And after that, we can take up the questions and then open it to the house. Is that okay, Mythili?
Sure, sure. Thank you.
Super, super. Please share the screen and start your presentation.
Yes, I will share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. I have been with Mansee's webinars for the past 3 years, and I really enjoy them. And this is my first opportunity and an honor to present in front of this forum. My thesis, which began many years back, was about the Pallikaranai Marsh. I was very much interested in the wetlands of Chennai, mainly because I've been a resident of Chennai all my life, and we have moved our residence at one instance because of the water problem that we faced. And that is a common occurrence in Chennai, people moving from to water richer areas and areas where water is supplied. And more recently, we have been facing climate change effects such as the flooding problems, which have hindered the lives of residents of Chennai. So this research is on the aspects of both the flooding and the drought, which for which wetlands are a universal solution. Wetlands are a universal solution for water, groundwater recharge, and all over the world, all over wetlands are a solution. There are so many aspects related to wetlands, and the Ramsar Convention, which was signed in 1971 in Iran, has been heralding the approaches towards saving wetlands. And Pallikaranai was also recognized as a Ramsar wetland in 2022, and that is the preamble of my work. And I will move into the presentation. This slide shows some of the imageries which are commonly seen in this region. Pallikaranai is a global part of the global migration cycle of many birds, many avifauna. And this image shows how the taifa grass grows abundantly, and also the multi-story buildings which are encroaching on the marsh. And this image is a Google Earth imagery of the region, how you can see how all the urban growth is choking the marsh, and it's all over, prevalent everywhere. So my introduction says that the society-nature polarity, which emerges from capitalist, colonial, and patriarchal dimensions, are to be done away with, and we should rethink our approach towards natural sciences and have a focus on humanity integrated with conservation. The social-ecological systems approach appears to be the solution to this. Ostrom advocates adaptive governance and self-governing principles, and Cumming gives a classification of SES framework, social ecological systems framework, based on the level of the stage that the SES is in. Hypothesis-oriented SES, assessment-oriented, action-oriented, problem-oriented, and theory-oriented. About the study area, Pallikaranai is a wetland in Chennai. The most common the most common data about Pallikaranai is that it has shrunk in the past 3 decades. It has shrunk from the 1970s to about 10% of its original extent, which is very sad, which is very alarming. And this is because of various policies of the government as well as the public lack of attention, lack of awareness, we should say. And being a wetland with abundant water in previous times, the local population that practiced agriculture, and there were grass cutters and people who fisher folk were abundant in this region, and all that has changed. There were people who moved into this region in the 1990s, and they still remember turtles on the road when they would drive on this road. In the northern side are the forested areas, which there are still forests existing in Chennai, the heart of Chennai, which is the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, and the Guindy National Park. And the water scarcity situation of Chennai led to a water market, which involved lorry tankers flying across the city distributing groundwater, which is all sourced from this region. And so this slide shows you the satellite imagery of 2002 and the current status of the Okiam Madavu region. This channel that you see here is known as Okiam Madavu. It is the channel which drains all the water from the wetland into the sea. The channel, as you can see, it leads into the Buckingham Canal, this linear water body, which leads further south into the region called Kovalam and enters the Bay of Bengal, which you can see here. Our literature review talks about the various frameworks. The IWRM framework has a spatial component, and part of our research question, the basic research question which emerged was that spatial planners and water managers do not find common ground to collaborate, and which is a big problem because we have all our real world problems which are the interface of water and land. So water is seen as a social and economic good. Water managers address the hydro-social cycle, whereas spatial planners appear to address land from more abstract dimensions. And spatial planners want water to be addressed from natural, ecological, and physical aspects, whereas water managers lean towards scientific and engineering aspects. How do we bridge the two? The literature review continues into some various research papers, which address the SES framework, the social ecological systems framework, in various geographies, in the French Alps, in Andhra Pradesh, India, and in San Francisco Bay Area, etc. My research questions were based on the Pallikaranai Marsh region. What is the background of events, both ecological and social, which have led to the condition of this wetland? How can we study changes in the social and ecological parameters? What do we learn from the socio-economic drivers and events which have acted upon the study area? What is the role played by public perception in addressing social and ecological issues? How do we comprehend or react to the actions of the governing authority in this regard? How do we evaluate the same based on current knowledge frameworks and requirements? So these are a few maps of the study area. It is in the southern state of India, Tamil Nadu, and the northern part of Tamil Nadu where Chennai is, and the taluk or the Sholinganallur taluk and all the administrative boundary is south of Chennai. And this image shows the detailed area from the report of 1993 from the Chennai Metropolitan Development Authority when they conducted a drainage study on 30 square kilometers of this region. And these are the administrative boundaries. The study area consists of the 8 villages or taluks. And this is a land use land cover map that we have prepared. It is historically a floodplain bearing the soil type granite gneiss and recent alluvium, and it is a home to highly endangered reptiles such as Russell's viper and birds, and it supported 349 species of flora and fauna. And the marsh is home to 133 species of birds, 10 species of mammals, 21 species of reptiles, 10 species of amphibians. Unfortunately, we did not collect this data. This data is sourced from the Adaptive Management Plan. And another research, landmark research, was on the environmental status of the wetland. The wetland is being continuously monitored by the IIT Madras also. And they have also listed out that so many 100,758 microplastics, of which 50% are less than 1 mm thick, are present in the water body. And this map shows the 65 water bodies. As we always knew, 34 water bodies from the western and northern regions were draining into the marsh. But since 2015, since the historic flood, there were a lot of hydrological interventions, and now there are the latest data is that 65 water bodies drain into the marsh, and these are the 65 water bodies, and they all drain into the marsh, and this is the wetland, and this is the Okiam Madavu, and this is how it reaches the Bay of Bengal. So this is a little bit of the layout of the study area. There is a timeline that we have that I have prepared, which lists out the events which led to the present status of the marsh from pre-colonial times to present times. So in pre-colonial times, it was It was all agricultural lands and forests, and then the early migrants into Pallikaranai came in the 1970s. So this diagram, this table is to be studied in the following way. The pink events are all administrative and policy related events. The blue highlights are hydrology related events, and the green highlights are ecology related events. So there is such a detailed history of information that is available in reports and from field studies that we have done by having conversations with residents. So we have tried to put all of I have tried to put all of this together, and we have learned that the water body was earmarked as a light industrial area from the early 1990s. And then in the late 1990s, the dump yard was established on the northern part of the marsh. There is unfortunately a dump yard, a landfill, which is a significant part of this region of South Chennai, which is lying on the marsh. And in pre-2002, there was a introduction of a road dividing the marsh, which is now known as the radial road or the 200 feet road. And there are culverts below this road which allow the passage from north to south, and the quality of flow is still being debated and discussed. And the protection of the marshland activities were initiated from 2007 when the forestry department took over control of the marsh. And then various wetland the master plan in 2026, master plan 2026, which came about in 2008, included Pallikaranai under the municipal corporation. And in 2014, the adaptive management report was submitted to the government. And 2015 were the major floods when the historic Chennai floods, all the roads and impervious areas and the solid waste dump, and this flood had a huge economic impact. And the metro rail construction began in 2017, and state government announces plans to restore so many hectares of wetland. And the columns on the right show the impacts on the public and the impacts on the ecology. And then the rightmost column shows the climate events. And 2020 hydrological interventions such as drainage channels and biomining of the dumping ground. And in 2022, Pallikaranai was recognized as a Ramsar Site, which is a landmark event, as we all know. And this shows some of the graphs. Since it's a social ecological study, we have collected data from various sources, population growth in the over the decades, urban area. This is from the LULC analysis that we have done. Urban area growth, urban area has also gone up, increased, while vegetation has come down, and water body area has come down, marshland area has come down. Birds observation from eBird, and from a website called Wunderground, which is weather analysis, which is a weather simulation, historic weather simulation site. We have tried to collect the data on temperature, rainfall, temperature, precipitation, relative humidity, and wind speed. And from the IMD data, we have also shown extremes of temperature over the decade. These are specific days on which temperature was highest and lowest in Chennai. And the heaviest rainfall within 24 hours also is shown here. And these are some of the data, the analysis that we have done. The hydrology map shows that the stream flow is from the west to east. And this portion is the Madavu drain, which leads out. And this is, as we know, it's a hydrologically rich region. But we have also observed that there were so many water bodies. This map was prepared from the revenue maps. All the water body outlines are mapped and georeferenced. And these were the water bodies present in the 1990s, 1980s. And in the 2008 map of the master plan, all the little water bodies that you can see in this map have all disappeared from this region. As of 2008, many water bodies have disappeared. We even went into the survey numbers and tried to check what happened to them. Many of the regions are still existing as damp regions, but they have been encroached upon, dried out, shrunk. And then we have overlaid the LULC analysis. We have overlaid these water body outlines on the LULC analysis. Obviously, the water bodies have shrunk and edges have been encroached upon. Some are lost. And we also try to do a benefit and cost analysis. To do a benefit cost analysis, you have to know the primary benefits and primary costs. The primary benefits obviously are that it's a wetland, and so there are so many ecosystem services. And then the primary cost is the cost of restoration, creation of bonds, and disaster management plan. And secondary benefits are social benefits derived by commuters, employment benefits, the benefits of employing people in the process of restoring and maintaining, upkeeping the wetland. And secondary costs are the loss of the wetland, frequent financial losses by flooding, loss of community support. And our research shows that due to the 2015 floods, the major flood of 2015, the loss of over 15,000 crores impacting 10 to 15% of the country's production was suffered by the industry lobby. And Venkatachalam from MIDS, a professor from MIDS, had conducted a willingness to pay survey, and it found out that the residents, number of residents, he also mentioned that though residents agreed that they were willing to pay 2,096 per annum for the upkeep of the marsh, so a number of people kept their mouths quiet and they did not participate in the survey because they were afraid of the consequences of participating in the survey. And community perception. There's another research on a wetland park in Bulgaria where people were questioned about their perception of the wetland, and we have also tried to do that with respect to Pallikaranai. Public perception is based on behavioral, emotional, and cognitive responses to the phenomena, and we have also tried to investigate the knowledge, attitude, and behavior of the inhabitants of Chennai with respect to water and environmental aspects. So this survey that we conducted was an online survey, and the sample size was 203. We tried to investigate with questions like, do the respondents believe in saving water? Do they think over extracting groundwater is harmful? Do they have a well-maintained rainwater harvesting facility? Are they personally exploiting groundwater? Have they supported people of lower socioeconomic strata with the use of water from their personal source? And we have done a correlation study. And the results showed that the responses of people were primarily that they were aware to some extent of the benefits of saving water, conserving water, and harvesting rainwater in their own property. And there were people who admitted to exploiting groundwater, who said they may be exploiting groundwater, and some people who vehemently claimed they did not exploit groundwater. And then so many people said, 127 people said they had a well-maintained facility to harvest rainwater. 29 said they may have such a facility, and 18 who had no such facility. And then all these people, so this survey and the conclusion from the survey showed us that people were knowledgeable and aware of this harms they were inflicting on the water bodies, but they were ambivalent about how they would rectify the situation or what they should do, and they were acting helpless about it because and they blamed the government, and then they said the policy should be different. And few people also said that it should be a penalty should be imposed. Some people were very strongly in support of penalties for upsetting the groundwater, for upsetting the water resources. Public perception. Another aspect is that the Pallikaranai region currently has residents who have come from all over the city, from other parts of the country, from other parts of the state. And so it's no longer the community which originally has had the support of the wetland, which enjoyed the ecosystem service benefits. It is not that community alone which is living there. That community has given up its previous professions, which were fishing and grass cutting. Those communities do not exist anymore. The people who live there are now people who work in multinational companies, and people who are, and of course, a few minority includes people who have lived there from the 1970s, 80s, 90s. But there's an influx of population from outside, and they have no connection, people who are obviously expecting to thrive on this region and enjoy the benefits of water, and who expect further urban amenities like transportation and last mile connectivity and comforts of living in an urban area. That is the kind of response from the public. So the parameters in action from our study, the hydrology has been studied, the hydrology has been mapped, and the regions of lower stream order or no stream flow, and the surface water bodies in those regions have been allowed to be lost by drying or shrinking. The land use, land cover observations show the residential component has taken over. Industrial land use has also taken over in some of the villages. And there is this bring forth the need to address larger players in the capacity of the polluter pays principle. More industrial land use may have limited footprint or zone of influence. More residential land use may have a larger repercussions. And voluntary and involuntary inhabitants, microeconomies, researchers, NGOs, policies are all the stakeholders in this region impacting natural resources. And policies and institutional framework, the wetland has been earmarked a reserve forest. The policies do not address encroachment and land use change, which, like in other tier 1 and tier 2 cities, lies unmonitored and managed by antisocial groups. And the commonly observed taifa grass, which is a marsh plant, is very highly prevalent in this region. The edge condition is grossly violated, and the loss of natural or organic edges implies loss of biodiversity. All organisms are viewed as pests and invasive without differentiating or learning about them. Environmental justice, the support for green agenda versus brown agenda is again here, the support for the green agenda is not strong enough. Spatial and temporal scales as per the SES theory. The scales which we act upon are the plot, street, village, micro to macro watersheds, birth, migration cycles, etc. The management approach, as we have seen, the attitudes, population influx, lack of awareness, and belligerent attitudes are encountered. As change makers, we have to persist and address the situation with focus. Community support, local political support, involvement of all stakeholders include some of the methods previously used in biodiversity improvement programs in Asia and across the world. Additionally, this may promote greater socio-economic resilience due to economic diversity, creation of jobs for local public, protection from flooding by technological measures. Incentivizing and generating compensations may promote the ideology, but should be coupled with awareness of one's responsibility. And in this paper, this is majorly from my research paper. This presentation was majorly from one of my research papers, which has been published, fortunately, recently. And I hope to take questions on this and address it further from there on. And the approaches are social, ecological, and climate and policy related. The social ecological system will be resilient and survive shocks if its health is monitored by enabling system flows and inter-resource exchanges, by integrating user behavior in a sensitive manner. So this community or categories of public play a vital role in the shaping of the social ecological system, which can in turn enhance the resource and ecosystem service value of the wetland. And these are some of the references I have used. So with this, I come to an end of my research paper, and I feel that the marsh needs to be addressed. With Ramsar recognition, there is further attention, but with the kind of situation of floods and monsoon preparedness activities of the government, there is not focused attention or scientific approaches on in terms of investigating, monitoring, and improving the current situation. And this will take off only if more and more public are made aware, and like some people say, the penalties might also be imposed, and various grassroots activities and bottom-up approaches need to be addressed. So that is my conclusion. Thank you for the opportunity. I will close my presentation.
Mythili, thanks so much for that presentation. I think you've taken up a very, very pertinent topic, and you've done full justice to it by looking at both the micro and macro aspects. And yes, love to take the conversation further. But I would ask you to share it back because there will be some references that we will make towards your to your presentation, and I think whoever is watching would also need to understand that.
You would like me to share it again?
Yes, yes, because
Yeah.
there'll be references to your presentation, which must be understood by the people watching.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, what came to me right at the beginning was that that table that you have given, whereby you've chronicled the ecological and the hydrological and the administrative. Yes, this is the one. This is the one. So it would be, great to understand the cause and effect. I'll just tell you why. I mean, if you look at the first intervention, let's forget the first two, because then you see that there are no people there. So obviously there will be no effect. But when you're saying that, the early migrants have moved into Pallikaranai, I mean, just because there are migrants, just because there is urbanization, it might not have led to anything derogatory. But I just want to understand the connection between these three events. So, say 1970s, am I correct? 1970s is when you have the early migrants. And then
Yes.
1980, you're talking about a positive move, which is, so I want to understand the connection because obviously something happens and then there is an administrative decision or there is a hydrological event, and then that moves on to a either good or derogatory ecological event. Can you just help us by connecting the dots here?
Okay. The early migrants refers to our investigation that people admitted to have first started living in this region. And arrival of migrants is obviously there were people there before and there was life and
Correct.
there were people
Yeah.
living there before. But these are the when I refer to migrants, I'm talking about people who answered our discussions, who people who talked to us about having lived there from that period. Because obviously when I'm conducting a research in 2020 about this region, I find it hard to find people who've known this region from the 1970s.
Correct.
And when I found some such people, it was very enlightening to know that they recall how it used to be, and they have been in this region and still belong here and feel an ownership and responsibility and attachment to this region. And so that is why they also talked about how they were, some of them were local politicians and people who worked for the government. And they talked about how they got a pin code for this region, which was a Chennai pin code and not a Kanchipuram pin code.
Okay.
And so that is all about the community. That to me was about the community and how the community grew with a sense of ownership about the land. And they also talked about how many of them were agriculturists and they could not get government loans for their agricultural lands. So they took the help of the development authority and converted their agricultural plots into residential plots. So they were able to submit the papers for these residential plots and get agricultural loans and build houses. And that is how the urban growth, which in one of my maps, I have shown the urban growth.
Right, right.
All these survey numbers are so close to the marsh. There are plots which are either residential or primary residential or mixed residential. And that is because of all these were agricultural lands which were converted into residential properties. And so this we view as the biggest event in the growth, in the development of this region. And so we are the timeline reflects all of this. Timeline reflects the events and which some of them were policy events and some of them were incidental community related events, and then there were hydrological events. Maybe the class categorization could have been a little more nuanced and
no, so the connections are, I think, obvious, but I just wanted to hear from you. And also, see, I get the feeling, correct me if I'm wrong, that somehow the administrative decisions have brought in more trouble than good. As if it was not the thing to do. By looking at it now, after so many years, I get this impression. What do you think?
The administrative decision to
Decisions led to something not so good.
yeah, the administrative decision to make this a light industrial area, the growth has been so massive that nobody envisaged that it would be so, it would overpower the city to this extent, and that is what that is the observation that it's a
Okay.
burgeoning growth, and
Right,
so
right.
it has been harmful to it has been very harmful to the water resources and the wetland.
Absolutely. Like the stories of all other wetlands
Yeah.
in the world, and especially in this country. Okay. So in slide number 14, I think it is, yeah, exactly. So you've given the effect of actions on climatic and ecological parameters. So I just wanted to see that there is not always an obvious connection. For example, in 2023, temperatures have reached a level which was recorded 50 years ago, right? So what would be that reason that 50 years ago it has reached a temperature which is now? So we are saying, well, loss of vegetation and all of the reasons that go behind increasing temperatures, but it happened so many years ago. So then we have the critics saying, well, it happened, so it's nothing great happening now. So would you have any reflection on that?
I think it should all be looked upon as a comparative, or as a all together temperature, rainfall, and winds and humidity. Everything should be looked upon. I haven't done anything on land surface temperature or any GIS work on this, but then comparing them as one against the other, along with the vegetation and the urban area growth, it is a correlation that the growth of the urban area has coincided with land surface temperatures and the climate events like precipitation.
Okay, okay. All right. So you have discussed your main thrust is the SES approach,
Yeah,
and of adaptive governance and self-governing principles, which are, would you say these are slightly idealistic in the sense that is it even possible for this to happen because the indigenous population would not be probably there anymore? And
I agree totally. I agree, because the indigenous population is not existing, and then the population is very what we should admit as irresponsible, because the population here is just looking for an urban growth and urban existence, and self-governing is more to do with communities which with greater government support, I feel, with greater government support, and which have been working with the government and with which have greater support and framework of NGOs and work from professionals who are who have gotten into bottom up approaches and grassroots level work. And this site is obviously not that kind of a site. This site is a city site, a tier 1 metro city, in which water body is actually degrading with and probably needs to be saved, but nobody is looking into it. And that kind of a situation, not as self-governing principles are a far cry, I would say. But such approaches, I don't know where I would be 5 years from now, but then I'm just saying that there are NGOs and there are professionals who are taking an interest. And even in 2023, there was a publication, there was a paper on Pallikaranai. I have gone through the recent research over the years on Pallikaranai. And in 2023, there was a publication from a university in UK, which talked about Chennai flyways and how the migration cycles of birds and the political situation and the entire landscape or the framework of events surrounding this marsh. And it was a very interesting read. and it talked about how we still haven't lost this valuable resource and we should save it. And what are the current? I mean, research also includes updating our current status and knowledge framework of what is the existing situation. So I have tried to do that kind of work. And
Right. So I think what you're suggesting is that the government could simply provide an enabling environment. And very often we've seen that NGOs, like you said, have done actually very groundbreaking work in this matter, in this manner. In the sense that you have written about the East Kolkata wetlands also, which since I've grown up there, I've seen what has happened. And you are correct in that the NGOs have actually driven the people to fight for their rights. So yes, I would rather say that the self-governing should be the enabling environment. Thank you very much for that observation. So when you say eco, I mean, we say eco to mean ecology, but there is a kind of thought process in this world today that if eco-savior has to be eco has to mean both ecology and economy. Without that, there is absolutely no future or no hope for everything to survive. Would you agree or would you disagree?
eco meaning ecology and economy is unfortunately it has come to be because ecology is the way to saving the ecosystem, and economy. There is I don't know whether this is a controversial research, but I remember reading long back that it was the what to say, the industrial revolution. There was an industrial revolution at a certain time, and there were thinkers like Marx and Engels, and they were the people who supported the environment. These were labor minded philosophers and historians, and they supported the environmental movement. And so it went hand in hand. While they supported the environmental movement, why? Because the environment consists of natural products which are economically enriching us. Forests, we talk about wetlands and not forests. Forests enrich us with wood, and forests have wildlife, and wildlife enrich us, and people are poaching and hunting, and nature has always been looked upon as bountiful. And wetlands, unfortunately, don't fall under that category because they're not ecologically rich, like supplying us with wood like forests. But wetlands are still important, and the importance of wetlands are not known to people. People are still hesitating to acknowledge that wetlands are so environmentally rich and so need to be saved. Unfortunately, people are still damaging wetlands. So the fact that nature is bountiful and people look upon ecology only from the perspective of the economic benefits has come to be. And that is my opinion.
Right. Yes, I think that kind of sums up the question. We have a hand raised from Smita. Smita, would you like to come in and ask? You can put your video on also. I mean, sorry, your camera on as well.
No, that's fine. Hi, good evening. Hi, this is Smita here. Hi, Mythili. Good to see you after long.
Thank you.
So, I've never been on this forum before, the W for W, but it's a very interesting forum. Congrats to the team for putting for this effort and putting things together. Really nice to see this. This is thanks to Mythili. I'm aware of this now. I'll try and follow the future events. So Mythili and I were batchmates from SPA, and I'm a principal consultant for urban and regional planning in Lee Associates. So just great work, Mythili. Good to see you, and best wishes for your PhD. I have a few points from what we have seen in our works in our projects in several cities across. Yes, community participation is absolutely essential for the success of any projects related to, especially such projects. But at the same time, I think government interventions and government money, public money, to come into sewage management, solid management, without these infrastructures in place, just the community participation would not lead to the kind of results we would want for a place like Pallikaranai. What's your take on that?
Government support, unfortunately, government support began only with the forest department taking over. And the forest department, there is a criticism on that also, that forest declaring as a reserve forest doesn't promote wise use of wetlands as stipulated by the Ramsar Convention.
Yes.
And so government support is definitely needed in a more organized manner, with not treating this as part of the city where stormwater management and monsoon preparedness is going on. What is required here is a much different scale of activity, much different scale of preparation. And while those efforts are ongoing, and we have seen that hydrological interventions have been happening, the floods have also been happening.
I'm talking about sewage management. I'm sure sewage is finding its way into
sewage
that.
is finding. There are STPs. STPs have been introduced in 2 sites which are close to the marsh itself. There are, but I'm not sure about the operational schedule, or whether they're already in operation, or. But
Okay,
this used to be a peri-urban area. It was part of the corporation only from 2008. And now it is very much part of the corporation.
Can you go to your study area slide, Mythili?
This?
Yeah, there was a map. This one. So this is an administrative boundary that you're showing, right? The Kataluka. Or
yes.
what? So my question was, in reality, for Pallikaranai, would the study area be the watershed area?
The watershed area would be the study area, but the micro watershed, I have also delineated the watershed map, the hydrology map. We took up the administrative boundaries because many of the taluks, neighboring taluks, have water bodies, and it's a very large area. It's this area is alone. This boundary is 57 square kilometers.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I have also done a hydrology study in this map, which I have shown here, which shows the stream flow and
okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
I had to choose between choosing an administrative boundary and a watershed boundary.
Yes,
and
I was just thinking,
was a choice to make.
Yeah.
And the watershed boundaries have been delineated before. Somebody had delineated 6 micro watersheds and made a watershed boundary. And so this was a choice which was made, and it covers the area adequately. So.
Okay. So coming again to the benefits of, to showcasing the benefits of wetlands. I mean, in this age of climate events, I mean, we are seeing rains, I mean, across projects that we are seeing, we absolutely unpredicted rains. These wetlands come as a good gray sponges at such times.
Yeah,
so is Pallikaranai being positioned as something like that, and something like that for Chennai?
Pallikaranai is being neglected rather, because Chennai is facing worse problems of other water bodies and co-areas. Chennai is being rocked by bigger problems like co-areas, which are originally city areas from the 1970s, like Nungapakkam and T Nagar. And the water inundation is happening even in those areas. And people are trying to find solutions and reasons for that. And this recent shower, which happened 3 weeks back, the water inundation wasn't so bad in Pallikaranai. Now, with all the hydrological interventions, the rain wasn't so heavy, and the downpour didn't affect these regions, the peri-urban regions, but more the core city regions like Nungapakkam and Ambattur were affected by the rain. So the Chennai is behaving in the vagaries of the monsoon are leading to research which is different at different events. So that is what is happening. Pallikaranai is being projected as a lot of attention and research, and focus is being shed upon this area, but government action is yet to be seen.
Okay. One last question, if we have the time, do we?
Sure.
Yeah. So I came across this project that CMDA is taking up for Chennai, which is the Green Blue Master Plan. Are you aware of anything happening on those lines and with Pallikaranai as a focus area?
The project of the next master plan of Chennai, which is the
Yeah, that
2036.
I'm aware.
Yeah,
But
I
along
think
with that,
as far as I know, it covers a much larger area, which includes Kanchipuram and the airport, the new airport, the Parandur airport, and it covers a much larger boundary, and all of those are coming into it. And
apart from the master plan, another project for the green blue, focus on the green and blue. There was some funded assignments. So I'm just wondering if you are aware of anything happening.
I'm not sure about Pallikaranai,
Okay.
but as far as I know, the master plan goes into Kanchipuram and the Parandur airport. And
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Best wishes, Mythili, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Smita.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Smita and Mythili, for those very, very relevant exchanges. And I will now request Mansee to jump in because I know that she will have a lot of things going on in her head. Yes, Mansee. Mansee, please unmute yourself.
Mythili, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. May I request you to close the presentation? I'm good without it.
Yes.
Yeah, so I always play the devil's advocate on this platform as a juror. We see it as a jury happening. But really, you showed some deep insights about the project, the timeline, to even showing the future challenges as well, I must say. At the same time, when I look at it as a PhD work, I am always intrigued when PhD thesis requires a level of abstraction, a level of theorization. So I have an advice as well as a question for you, especially because you talked about in the beginning, talking about doing SES framework, social ecological system framework. So I'm just curious if you are aware of the social ecological system framework developed by Elinor Ostrom, because actually even I did my PhD on social ecological system framework looking at urban lakes of India, and I diligently applied the framework to see whether it is used or it can be used in Indian context. And before me, Harini Nagendra had already used that framework. Why I am putting this question is PhD is a limited time project. And whether you enter from the context or you enter from the theory or you enter from the method side, I just finished a workshop on writing PhD proposal and grant proposal. I think you still have to touch the other aspects of it. So while I get a deep insight on the context in your work and also some insights on the methodology, but not really put
On the theory.
very explicitly. I am missing a theoretical backup. You also mentioned the LULC work, but you could have also shown the LULC framework in that sense. So I understand you presented a paper's work, but I'm just curious to know, are you using a theoretical or methodological framework to look into your research? Because I am a bit afraid, because these subjects are so complex and wide, it will be extremely difficult to put things together and limit yourself. So while in our ideas, PhD has to delimit the thoughts and ideas, but in practice for PhD as a project, it has to be time bound and it has to be limited within the given framework which you choose. So I just wish to know from you. I was very,
Yes.
very clear when I took this framework from Elinor Ostrom. I knew that I'm going to look only inside that framework and describe the urban lakes of India and explain the apathy of situations, whether it is social, ecological, institutional. So I didn't really go outside the framework. I want to know what is your plan and what are you really picking from the SES framework?
I will be honest about this. I started with the context. I started with the problem and the
Yes,
context,
that's
and
absolutely fine. Yeah.
I learned about doing GIS and LULC
Ah,
methods, and I took the approach theoretically. The theory was in my mind to do an LULC before I learned
ah,
to open a satellite image, download a satellite image. So I went into all that, and it is more recent that I came across the SES theory and did a
ah,
lot of literature reviews on SES theory. And I have
mm,
read a few papers by Harini Nagendra, one paper by
ah,
Nagendra and Ostrom on the lakes of
mm,
Bangalore. And
yes.
I found the theory very interesting. And I've also submitted papers to a number of journals and received a lot of rejects. And
Mm,
learned that either theoretical insights were not sufficient in my writing, and then I focus on the local context, and I'm not so grounded in theory enough, and that kind of responses from journals. So I went into the SES theory and realized that it's very much applicable. And I also studied the SES theory, the variables, the resource units, institutional resource
yes.
users and variables and all that. And I found papers comparing SES approaches, SES variables for a number of water bodies. And
Mm,
I tried to apply the framework, but it didn't make sense to force it on some other kind of research.
mm,
My method, my origin came from the context, and
mm,
forcing
mm,
the
mm,
SES framework on this and trying to add a few maps didn't make sense to me. So I'm still exploring. My research question was on how the land planners and water managers fail to collaborate. The
mm,
spatial component of
mm,
climate events, and how land plan and water man what kind of interface is this land water
mm,
interface.
mm.
And that is the kind of theoretical approach I am still studying frameworks. I totally appreciate your question and your concern, and I understand that with this being time bound, uh, all this has to come in, all this has to fit in, otherwise it's not a PhD. So I really appreciate your question and concern, and working on that.
I will suggest you to just take a framework and put whatever you have found so far, because digging and diagnosing is endless. And you have to really stop at a point to say that this is what I found and this is what I learned. And that has to be backed by a framework. So that's why I was keen. And you have such rich information about the subject, you know. So it needs a backing. It is okay to start with a context. It is okay with the question which you have. So the SES, the beauty of SES framework, I run a workshop on how to use SES framework, to be honest. The beauty of SES framework is that you can enter the framework from any point. And by the way, from my PhD, I developed the SES framework and made urban lakes framework, how to study wetlands, which has a spatial component because SES was not giving me that option, and which also has a timeline component. So the framework is at, so you can also develop the framework further. And for that matter, I find even the LULC framework quite useful in the way you are trying to look at. Only thing as a PhD scholar is you have to stick to one or two and develop your own framework. So in your presentation, while I was very overwhelmed with the rich information you have about the wetland, but I was seeking some kind of grounding in abstraction, because eventually we have to become, a doctorate in philosophy. So the larger question from your work which came to my mind are we approaching the wetland management or conservation rightfully? And what are the hindrances coming on the way? It may be social, it may be institutional, it may be ecological as well, it may be climatic. So when Smitha was asking, I was also getting these questions in my mind that if one knows so much about the wetland, one also knows the problems of the wetland with all these layers of complexity. So it's a very rich work, and no denial about it. And I don't see you are far from really putting it together and just putting it and packaging it and letting it go. So I think I will stop here. And if there are no more questions from anyone, or Mythili, if you have any questions for us, you can ask that, or else I will do the vote of thanks for the day.
No questions.
Okay. Sonia, is it okay? We do vote of thanks now and we
Yes,
can close the session for today.
absolutely.
And before that, I will do also the announcement for the next session as well, which is our ritual to do that. So first of all, thank you so much, Mythili, for this wonderful presentation and insights. I learned one more wetland so thoroughly, not as thoroughly as you, but definitely a little bit more. And I can always return to you when I need to know more about the wetland and the way it should be documented for that matter. In here, we have at W4W Foundation, we have completed more than 320 sessions, and this would not have been possible without reaching out to nearly 600 speakers, more than 6,000 participants who have attended our sessions, and definitely the core team members, around 20 of them who work at the background, and one is here today at the foreground, Sonia. So thank you so much, team members. Next week, Friday Waters comes with book reading session, and it's a global book written by many authors from around the world. So on November 15th at 5 p.m. IST, we will discuss what are the essence of life. And the joining link is already posted in the chat box. We have one of the authors from Myanmar and one from Portugal, but Australian, and one from India, who are going to present the making of the book. Next week, Wednesday, which is our signature series, we have another interesting session, again coming from outside. We are having the education series supported by Terry School of Advanced Studies, Delhi. And we are talking about celebrating the monsoon, which is on 13th of November, with the teachers and students of Columbia University, New York. And they have been doing water studio in Ahmedabad, where I have been also integral part of their working in the city. So I thought it's a good time to invite them. So they will come on 13th of November. I think that's all for me for the announcement. We will definitely continue to work on Monday Munching Musing with Women for Water, where we invite women speakers. Now, last but not the least, if you are interested to be speakers, or if you know some good speaker doing tremendous work and good work in water sector, do connect them with us or do reach out to us. Our details are also in the chat box, and also website is very clear. All our 300 sessions are there on the website. Thank you so much, all of you. Please check our website, www.w4w.in, and please take care of yourself and keep yourself wet. It's a weekend, and have a good weekend. Thanks a lot.
You too, Mansi. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.